The corridor was silent again. Snow covered the dead. Smoke drifted through broken trees. But the war didn't end. It followed them, east, into Germany, into ruined cities, into frozen villages, into basements where men waited in darkness with fingers on triggers. The United States Army crossed the border in winter, and Germany turned into a maze of hiding places. The first town looked abandoned, windows blown out, doors hanging open, snow filling the streets. No movement, no sound, too quiet. American soldiers moved slow, rifles raised, breath held, boots stepping only where rubble wouldn't crunch. Because in Germany, silence meant danger. They learned quickly. The enemy was no longer standing in trenches. He was hiding in cellars, in attics, in sewer tunnels, behind walls blown open by bombs. German soldiers no longer fought as an army. They hunted as ghosts. A patrol moved down a narrow street. 6 Americans, 1 tank behind them. Then a window shattered. A Panzerfaust streaked out of the darkness. The tank exploded. The street filled with smoke and fire. From the ruins, rifles opened up. 3 Americans went down before they could even turn. The rest dove into doorways, into rubble, into death's waiting room. Urban winter warfare became a game of shadows. You never saw the enemy first. You heard him. A cough in the dark, a boot scraping concrete, a breath behind a wall. If you moved too fast, you died. If you stood too long, you froze. German units survived by hiding. They slept in sewer tunnels where steam kept them warm. They moved through destroyed buildings without touching the streets. They used church basements as bunkers, subway tunnels as highways. They watched American patrols from holes in the walls. They waited, and when Americans passed, they struck, then vanished again. American soldiers called it the Rat War, a war where you were never safe, never alone, never sure. Snipers hid for days without moving. Some froze to death in firing positions, but they kept waiting. Because one bullet could change the battle. In one city near Cologne, an entire American platoon vanished. No bodies, no radio calls, no witnesses. They were later found in a factory basement. All dead, guns empty, grenades used, knife wounds. They had fought in the dark, until there was no one left. The fear was constant. Men slept with rifles in their arms. Fingers on triggers, eyes open. Some refused to take off boots for weeks. Some refused to sleep, because sleep meant not hearing footsteps. The Germans knew the terrain. They had grown up in these cities. They knew every alley, every stairwell, every tunnel. They moved like the buildings were alive. The Americans had maps. The Germans had memory. Winter made it worse. Snow covered footprints too quickly. Fog erased vision. Cold silence sound. A soldier could be 10 feet away and invisible. Men began shooting at shadows, at reflections, at fear. In one ruined school, an American unit took shelter. They sealed doors, blocked windows, set tripwires. They thought they were safe. They were not. German soldiers entered through the roof, crawled through ventilation shafts, dropped into classrooms. The fight lasted 9 minutes. Only 2 Americans walked out, both shaking, both silent, both older than when they went in. This was not war. This was hunting, and everyone was prey. By March, Germany was bleeding. Cities burned day and night. Bombers erased neighborhoods. Artillery flattened blocks. But the hiding never stopped. Even in ruins, men waited. Even in fire, men watched. Even in defeat, men fought. One American sergeant wrote, "Every door is a coffin. Every window is a rifle. Every basement is a grave waiting to be filled." Then came the final push. Across the Rhine, into the heart of the Reich. The last German units made their stands in hospitals, churches, and apartment blocks. Places that once held life, now held death. In Berlin, it became madness. Sewer battles, subway ambushes, flamethrowers in stairwells. Soldiers hunted each other like animals. No flags, No mercy, no retreat, just survival. When the war ended, the hiding didn't stop. German soldiers stayed underground for weeks. Some didn't believe it was over. Some were too afraid to come out. Some had forgotten how to live in daylight. American soldiers walked through cities where no one moved. Curtains stayed closed. Doors stayed locked. Eyes watched from cracks in walls. The war had taught everyone the same lesson. Visibility gets you killed. Victory came on paper, but the fear stayed in the bones. Men flinched at footsteps, jumped at doors, slept with weapons beside them. Because once you survive a war where the enemy lives inside the walls, you never feel alone again. Winter faded, snow melted, ruins remained, and beneath every street, every cellar, every tunnel, the war waited, not in armies, not in flags, but in memory. This was not a story about winning. This was a story about staying alive. In a world where death learned how to hide, the war was supposed to be over. The guns went silent. The bombs stopped falling. The world began to breathe again. But for the men who survived it, the war never ended. It followed them home. They came back on steel ships, through cold oceans and gray skies, standing shoulder to shoulder, silent, thin, scarred. No victory parades waited for them. No cheering crowds. Only empty docks and broken cities. They stepped onto peaceful land, with war still burning inside their minds. At night, they couldn't sleep. The silence was too loud. No artillery, no engines, no gunfire. Only memories, frozen forests, burned villages, ruined streets, and the faces of men who never came back. Some woke up screaming. Some stared at walls until sunrise. Some drank just to forget. The war didn't leave them. It lived inside them. People asked questions. Was it exciting? Was it like the movies? They never answered. How do you explain the smell of burned cities? How do you describe the sound of a man dying in snow? How do you talk about holding your best friend as he bleeds out in your arms? So they stayed quiet, and silence built walls between them and the world. Every town had empty homes. Every street had missing sons, names carved into stone, photos on dusty shelves, medals locked away in drawers. For every man who came home, another stayed behind, buried in foreign soil. The world moved on. New cities rose. New wars began. New enemies appeared. But the scars remained. World War II taught humanity a lesson written in blood. Freedom is never free. Peace is never permanent. And evil never disappears. It only waits. Today, only a few remain. Old men now, shaking hands, tired eyes. But when the flag rises, they still stand tall. They remember a world on fire. They remember brothers who never returned. They remember running into the flames so we could live in the light. But the war didn't truly end in 1945. It only changed its face. And the next battle was already beginning.